What's up, guys? My name is Troy, but I also go by TangelaBoots, and today I'm bringing you my Week 4 PEBA battle. Now, if you're wondering where Week 3 is, if you notice that it's missing, the battle did not happen. My opponent happened to forfeit. We tried to schedule the match. Our schedules were really mixed up, and unfortunately we couldn't get the battle done, but he took the forfeit. We might make that battle up in the future, but for now it's counted as a win. At least I'm counting it as a win for now because he did say that he was going to forfeit. So we are 3-0 heading into week 4, and I'm here to bring you my team and show you the battle of what happened. So right about now, I'm going to be showing you my opponent's team. Once again, I've listed them in the order of how likely I think they are to come. So starting off, we have Shaman, who is making their debut on the team, Lily the Shaman. And we have a pretty basic set, at least in my mind. The set's a little bit strange. So the speed investment is to outspeed a Jolly Excadrill without Scarf. This is primarily for the fact that it could run Poison Jab or something like that against Shaman, and I want to be able to kill it with Seed Flare or Earth Power, ideally. So that's kind of the goal behind that. Then otherwise it's just max special attack. The defense is just for defensive investment. I expect Shaman to have to deal with more physical hits as opposed to special. As for coverage, Seed Flare is kind of just an overall spammable move against this team. Dazzling Gleam is specifically for the Gallade, the Komodo if it decides to come, and that's pretty much it. It doesn't really have much great coverage against anything else, but it's kind of nice to have because Seed Flare can't really hit those things very well. And then Earth Power is for the Tapu Koko, being able to one-shot that. I believe it's not really for anything else on his team. If he does bring the Ditto, it could potentially hit Arcanine, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. But yeah, it's mainly to hit that Tapu Koko, and it can hit the Excadrill. It's a nice option if I predict one of those things to switch in. Earth Power is definitely a good move to have for either of them. Rest is obviously... Shaman can status absorb this game, which is really nice. I expect Jellicent to run something like Toxic. Cresselia could also run Toxic. Cresselia is very annoying. I definitely expect that thing coming. And then Lepaberry is actually to get more Seed Flares. Seed Flare is very spammable against him, and his options for switch-ins are not many. He has the Cresselia and the Aromatisse, which have pretty high special defense. Gallade has some pretty high special defense too. But he can't really recover as easily as those other two can. And basically, if I can spam Seed Flare and get some special defense drops, I can pick up some 2-hit KOs, basically. And Lepaberry will allow me to get more chances to use Seed Flare, making it go from 8 PP to 16. So that's the idea behind Shaman. I can just rest and switch out, and with Natural Cure, I'll be awake when I switch back in. But yeah, that's pretty much Shaman. Moving on, we have Scizor. Scizor's back again. Pretty offensive moveset, obviously. I just have the attack investment, fully adamant. The special defense in the Aqua Berry is just to live any kind of random hidden powers you could have. You could have hidden power on, all sorts of things. You could have it on the Tapu Koko. I could even have the Aqua Berry in the event of Gallade having Fire Punch. Same with Snorlax. But other things that could have the hidden power fire could be, the Galvantula. The Aromatisse could even have it. I know it doesn't want to live a Bullet Punch, but if he wants to bait with the Aromatisse, he could certainly invest with defense and then go for HP Fire. Jellicent is another one, although I think Jellicent would just prefer to burn me instead. But it's still an option. Basically, I want to be covered for a hidden power fire in any kind of situation, and not get fooled by it. Because Scizor, I feel like, is pretty important in this game. He can clean up pretty well. I wanted to avoid setup. I don't know how likely his Ditto is, but I wanted to avoid setup at all costs, except for Scizor. Because Scizor can be walled by Arcanine, which I did bring. You'll see that in a bit. So I'm not really scared about setting up Swords Dance with Scizor, because he'll have to lock himself in either Bullet Punch or Bug Bite, and in either case, I can go into Arcanine, drop his attack, and eat hits pretty easily. So Scizor is my only setup this week. Wait, Swords Dance, Roost to keep myself healthy. Bullet Punch is for pretty much everything on his team. And then Bug Bite is to basically hit the Cresselia. and the Tangela. I don't really expect the Tangela to come, but it is possible. And the Cresselia obviously is a big threat, so I want to be able to bug bite that thing. Bug bite's also nice against the Snorlax in case he decides to have Figgy Berry or something like that. I could imagine he could use berries on his other Pokemon, but I think the Snorlax is the most likely candidate. And yeah, other than that, Scizor is pretty basic this week. This is kind of just what I'm rocking out with. Moving on, we have my boy Shrimp, the Armaldo. Pretty basic. I kind of just wanted to have Stealth Rocks this game. I think Stealth Rocks is pretty great against my opponent, considering his only method of removing them is the Excadrill, which is a spinner. And I think he might want to use Excadrill more offensively this game anyways. So I'm considering basically just trying to get hazards up as easily as possible with Armaldo. You know, hopefully if I'm able to handle Excadrill, I can keep them up for the majority of the game, because it chips away at all of his Pokemon really nicely. It doesn't necessarily do a whole lot of super effective damage against him, but just being able to whittle down some of these Pokemon like the Tapu Koko, the Jellicent or Cresselia, if I manage to status them, pretty much all of that. If I'm able to just slowly chip down certain Pokemon, it'd be really nice. The Rapid Spin is obviously to keep rocks off of my side of the field. I definitely expect him to try and set up rocks, even though, again, he could only really set them up with Excadrill or Hippopotas. I definitely think he will try to. I don't want him to have them set up for the whole game, so I want to be able to Rapid Spin just in case. Toxic pretty much works for everything that isn't Excadrill. I wouldn't want to stay in on Excadrill anyways, so I don't really care. I mean, I have Earthquake for Excadrill, but I don't really care that I can't Toxic Excadrill, you know? Toxic is mainly to hit the Jellicent upon it switching in. I can Toxic the Cresselia if it comes in. Toxicking the Snorlax would be good just as long as it doesn't have Rest. I know that Aromatisse could run Aromatherapy or something like that, but just having the option to Toxic certain Pokemon on his team is really nice. I definitely would appreciate whittling down some of his, you know, more defensive Pokemon. And then, like I said, Earthquake is kind of just here for Excadrill. It's a good neutral attacking option. You know, Armaldo's pretty much all support this week. You can tell by the EVs. Moving on, we have my boy Arcanine this week. I already mentioned him, but here he is. We have a fully defensive Arcanine, impish, intimidate, all the good stuff. This is pretty much your typical Arcanine. The reason I'm bringing it is because I want to be able to live as much damage as possible from Excadrill if it comes. I'm very scared of that thing, and being able to intimidate it and, you know, take the least amount of damage possible from stuff like Rock Slide or hopefully even Earthquake would be really nice. Will-O-Wisp is obviously there to burn things on his team. The Gallade would be really nice to burn. Burn could even be nice to whittle down some of his other Pokemon like that Jellicent or Cresselia if I really need to, you know, mitigate the leftovers recovery. I can kind of Will-O-Wisp them to undo that. I can even Will-O-Wisp Komodo if it comes. I don't really think it'll come, but it's kind of just there to be there. Morning Sun, Flare Blitz, Extreme Speed, you know the drill on that. I don't really have to explain that. It's kind of just basic Arcanine. Although I will say the Extreme Speed could be pretty clutch against the Mega Gallade, who doesn't have very high defense, and the Tapu Koko, who is pretty frail. So that's kind of the reasoning there. Even the Galvantula, because Galvantula can outspeed me. I know it wouldn't really want to stay in on me, but if it decides to Volt Switch and I could knock it out with Extreme Speed, why wouldn't I? So yeah, Arcanine, pretty simple. Don't really need to say much more. Moving on, we have Mantine. Mantine is back again. I keep using Mantine. I love using Mantine. Definitely really appreciating the fact that I decided to pick it up. Pretty basic set, I would say. Obviously, the Wakan Berry is a little different, but it's for the Tapu Koko, because with Mirror Coat, I can live a Thunderbolt with Wakan Berry, assuming he's not Choice Specs. If he has Magnet, it's a roll. But basically, I can live a Thunderbolt in most situations from Tapu Koko with the Wakan Berry and go for Mirror Coat and basically kill Tapu Koko. This also covers any kind of Hidden Power Electrics he could run. The Toxic, again, same reason I have it on Armaldo. It's kind of just nice to status Cresselia, Jellicent, etc. And Roost and Scald, you know the drill there too. It's kind of just to stay healthy. I've been running the same Mantine EVs pretty much every week. I don't think my opponents have caught on. But this is what I think works best. It's just what happens to work best so far. I don't expect to kind of use Mantine like this all the time, but it does work for now, so I'm going to just keep rolling with it. And then lastly this week we have Alakazam, which I'm very excited about this week. I don't have too much high expectations of Alakazam for the most part. I don't expect to use it a whole lot because it really isn't my playstyle, but in certain situations, I definitely could see it working. And this is one of the weeks where I saw Alakazam definitely working. So my opponent has a lot of very fast things on his team, and it's a bit concerning to me. I don't think he'll bring Galvantula for Sticky Webs because I don't have too many fast Pokemon, and the faster Pokemon that I do have are pretty unlikely for me to bring. I think he'll realize, such as, Heliolisk. But basically, the idea behind this Alakazam is if he does bring Sticky Webs, Choice Scarf will kind of cancel it out, and I'll still be able to outspeed some of his Pokemon. I have just enough speed to outspeed Mega Gallade every single time, even if I don't have Choice Scarf, which is really nice. Being able to hit it with a Shadow Ball would be very nice. I can't outspeed the Tapu Koko with webs, but if I'm Choice Scarfed and there are no webs, I will be able to outspeed the Tapu Koko, hit it with Psychic. Psychic overall is really good against his team because besides Excadrill, he doesn't really have a switch-in for it. No Dark type to speak of, and Excadrill is his only Steel type. So that's really good. Focus Blast is for that Excadrill if I really have to hit it. If he is, what is Sandrush? That's the ability. Took me a second there. If he's Sandrush, I won't be able to outspeed him, but if he is not, or if he's just Choice Scarf, I will be able to outspeed him with this Alakazam and go for Focus Blast. And like I said, Shadow Ball, it's for the Cresselia, it's for the Jellicent, it's for the Gallade. None of them really, want to take that Shadow Ball. The Cresselia could be very scary if he decides to go for Calm Mind, but that's where the trick comes in. Because I can trick the Choice Scarf onto a lot of his Pokemon, and it could be very crippling. Tricking it onto the Jellicent would be good, the Cresselia, the Aromatisse, even the Tangela or the Hippopotas. It could definitely be very nice because locking any of those Pokemon into just one move and limiting them by that much could be very helpful this game. I will be able to tell if I don't need the Choice Scarf anymore. So that's definitely a plus. I definitely like the idea of that. And I think it'll work out really well. So that's the idea behind the team. And with that, I'm going to head over to the battle. So here we are at the battle, week 4 of the PEBA. And looking at my opponent's team, he actually brought a lot of the things that I expected. I knew he was going to bring the Gallade, the Tapu Koko, and the Excadrill I definitely knew he was going to bring, as well as the Jellicent. It's a very scary defensive wall, but he did not bring the Cresselia, which I definitely appreciate. He opted to bring the Aromatisse instead. And the Hippopotas is here, which even though I didn't really expect it, it is a little bit scary because he can set up the sand for a potential Sand Rush Excadrill, which will pretty much outspeed my whole team. So, pretty scary, I guess. Definitely a bit of a threat, but he didn't bring Snorlax, which I was a little bit more concerned about, and had less ways of dealing with directly if he was, for example, Curse and Rest. So, I'm a little bit happy that that's not there. But looking at his team, I can't really exactly figure out what he's going to lead. He has a lot of different lead options. He could definitely lead with Volt Switch on the Tapu Koko. Excadrill is a bit of a wild card because he could either set up rocks, or he could, be a Scarf set. He could bluff the rocks and just be a Scarf offensive set and take something out. Or he could be lead Hippopotas and get up rocks that way. But no matter what, in all those situations, I want to lead Arcanine, because Intimidate is really nice if he leads Excadrill or the Hippopotas. Even if he decides to lead the Gallade just to get the Mega Evolution over with, having Arcanine as the lead, I feel very confident with. If he does lead Tapu Koko, I can switch and handle that. So that is what I'm going to do, and let us start the battle. So turn 1, I do lead Arcanine as he leads Hippopotas. And I'm just going to go for the Willow-Spear, like I said, just to burn something, as he's actually going to set up his Stealth Rocks. And I decided that I'm actually just going to stay in and go for a Flare Blitz here, just to gauge the damage, see how defensive this Hippopotas really is, and he eats that up very well. And he actually goes for a Toxic. And I really don't appreciate that my Arcanine is Toxic that early in the game, and I don't want to mess with status anymore. So turn 3, I'm going to switch into Shaman, to absorb status because it doesn't mind being toxic, and I can pressure the Hippopotas more. But he switches out into Aromatisse. So I'm not too concerned about this because Aromatisse can't damage me too much, you know, like at base value. So I'm just going to spam Seed Flare and hope that I get a special defense drop. As he's just going to Wish. If he does pass, it doesn't matter because I can just keep Seed Flaring and hopefully, you know, lower something special defense or knock something out. But he opts to just stay in. He Aromatherapies, which eliminates the Hippopotas's burn, which isn't too big of a deal, I guess. It wasn't dealing too much damage anyways, you know, it's just a Hippopotas. But we're just going to kind of keep staying in and Seed Flaring up until now, where I have to rest because my health is getting a little too low. And I'm going to have to switch out into my Scizor, which more directly threatens the Aromatisse because he's, you know, I'm letting him get too much damage on me. But he's going to switch again into Gallade. I'm assuming he wanted to capitalize off the fact that my Shaman was asleep, but he didn't realize I would switch out to cure it. And he's going to go right into Jellicent, as I just clicked Bug Bite. Just, you know, because I expected him to want to stay in, and it would deal a lot more damage than anything else. So now I have to go into Mantine. We're going to exchange Toxics here. Which definitely sucks a bit more for me because I don't have a way to heal Toxic, whereas he's already revealed Aromatherapy on his Aromatisse. So hopefully it'll be worth it in the long run, but for now I'm going to switch right back into Shaman because I don't want to deal with even more status. This is my status absorber, and luckily he actually switches into his Excadrill. But he gets the Poison Jab right here, and right here he reveals that he is Scarfed to me. Which means he's most likely not Sandforce, and as we can actually see, he is Mold Breaker, because that is indicated when he's switched in. So I'm immediately a bit relieved, because he is not Sandforce, or, I'm sorry, Sandrush. But this is a bit scary because he does outspeed my Shaman, pretty threatening, and he gets the Poison, which means he's allowed to get the 2-hit KO now because of the prior damage. So I definitely want to switch out to get rid of the Poison. And I have two options. I can either go Scizor or Armaldo, because both of them resist poison, except Scizor is immune. The problem is, Scizor doesn't directly threaten this Excadrill anyways, and it's too early to set up the Swords Dance, because Jellicent is alive, and Jellicent can easily handle Scizor. So, the idea here is to go into Armaldo, because I want Stealth Rocks up. There's been a lot of switching so far, and having them up would be really nice, and removing them would be even nicer. And if he's just clicking Poison Jab, he can't directly threaten me with this Excadrill. So right here, I'm going to cure my own poison, and I'm going to bring in my boy Shrimp the Armaldo. So yeah, I'm just going to immediately set up Stealth Rocks. I contemplated Rapid Spinning first, but I decided to go for the Stealth Rocks right here as he goes into Gallade, which is a bit threatening, but I decide Armaldo doesn't do much in this match anyways, so I'm actually just going to click Rapid Spin here as he actually clicks Swords Dance. I was just trying to sack Armaldo here, but now it's a bit scary because he has a Swords Dance up, and I don't have too many ways to take this thing out. He goes for the Earthquake, surprisingly. I think he was predicting my Arcanine to come in to intimidate him, but I just decided, you know what, if Armaldo goes down, he goes down. He's already at full health, so if he kills me at Drain Punch, it's not like he's really gaining anything. I just lose Armaldo. So I'm going to try and click Toxic to see if I live an attack, and I do. So I successfully put this Gallade on a timer, which will pretty much stop it from sweeping, and now, since he just clicked Earthquake and it didn't really work out for him, I'm going to predict him to not click Earthquake twice. I think he was predicting the Arcanine, considering that's the only reason he would really click Earthquake, because otherwise Drain Punch was the superior move, hands down. So I'm actually going to switch into Arcanine right here, predicting him to switch moves and lowering his attack some. And as you're going to see, he actually went for the Ice Punch, which I'm assuming he predicted me to go into the Shaman to live the Earthquake, or the Mantine. But I went into Arcanine instead. So he's going to switch out now, and he's going to go into Aromatisse, which is a bit strange, considering I kind of threatened this thing, but I just went for the Morning Sun. You know, if he went for an attack, I could have healed it off. If he switched out, I got even more health back, so that's good. And I'm going to use this as an opportunity to actually go into Shaman, because I know he's going to click Wish. He has to, because he's low health. And I'm going to use this as an opportunity to start launching more Seed Flares. I still haven't got that special defense drop. We have a scary moment because he drops me all the way down to 1%, but I'm just going to be able to rest it all up anyways. But I'm just fishing for this special defense drop so I can finally just kill this Aromatisse. But I pretty much had this moment where I realized that it's not really going to work. I've been trying it long enough. So this is a moment where I realized this is a job for Alakazam. I brought Trick Alakazam for a reason. And since Cresselia isn't here, Aromatisse is my big target, or Jellicent, for the Choice Scarf to receive it. And considering he's just staying in and wishing, moonblasting, and clicking Aromatherapy, getting this thing scarfed would be really nice. Because then it will be hard for him to heal his team from status, it'll be hard for him to heal up the rest of his team with Wish, and he's pretty much just going to be a Moonblast machine at that point, and I can just switch into Arcanine or Scizor. So I'm crossing my fingers, praying he's going to stay in, because it could be disastrous if he switched out right here into something else. But he stays in, I give him the Choice Scarf, I obtain the leftovers, and he does a decent amount to me considering Alakazam's special defense, but this isn't a problem. I'm able to just switch right into Scizor, and I can now wall this Aromatisse indefinitely. I am just going to go for Roost, I think, to make myself full health here. Yeah, I just went for Roost, strictly just because I wanted to be able to, you know, live certain hits if I had to, and I predicted him to switch anyways. And now I obviously just go back into Mantine, which is my dedicated answer to this Jellicent now, and I'll be able to get the Toxic off here, which is very nice because now he's much more limited in his options to heal this Jellicent. So we're kind of more even now as two bulky water types with Water Absorb, just trying to whittle each other down. I do click Roost just to try and, you know, stay healthy, but he clicks Recover, and I kind of realize, like, this isn't really going anywhere. So I'm going to switch out into Shaman to put more offensive pressure on, and he's actually going to think the same exact thing and go into Aromatisse. But I'm not really scared of this Aromatisse anymore, considering his only attacking option is Moonblast. I don't get the special defense drop, so I'm just going to stay in and click Rest, and I'm just going to switch back out into Scizor. I keep changing my mind a lot about Shaman. You know, I feel iffy about using my Seed Flares, because even though I do have the Lepid Berry, it does feel a bit nerve-wracking. But we both pull some switches, and something very interesting happens here. I switch into my Scizor to threaten the Aromatisse, and for some reason he actually switched in his Hippopotas. I guess he knew I was going to switch out because I always do that when I right-click Rest on Shaman, but it is a bit interesting that he brings in the Hippopotas, and I think it's because he wants to get up rocks again. And I realize, upon looking at it, that my Armaldo will go down if I don't bring him in now, because he's at 21% and he'll die to Stealth Rocks upon the next switch in. All my other Pokemon are pretty much fine. I mean, Mantine and Arcanine don't want to take that damage. But basically, because he brought in this Hippopotas, as much as I want to stay in with Scizor here and just kind of set up, I have to switch into Armaldo to keep rocks off the field. So that's what I'm going to do right here. I don't think he's going to attack me, obviously, because I'm a Scizor. So I go into Armaldo as he sets up the Stealth Rocks, and this is perfect because I'm going to be able to click Rapid Spin and just kind of spam it until I die. And as soon as I die, I can bring in Shaman, which will threaten him more directly. I happen to live this Earthquake, which is really great because it gives me an opportunity to Toxic this Hippopotas. If you wanted to keep it around, it's poisoned, but I'm just able to click Rapid Spin again here as he set up the rocks, and I'm going to go down to Earthquake. And this is great because I successfully kept off rocks from my side of the field, and now I'm going to be able to threaten this Hippopotas with Shaman. He is going to try and save it at first, and he goes into Tapu Koko, who is not going to like the Seed Flare at all. This thing is fragile, and not wanting to miss a Seed Flare, which I haven't done yet, but fearing it, I just click Earth Power. He doesn't have Hidden Power Ice or anything like that. He doesn't have Brave Bird, which is great. So Tapu Koko was gone. First death, like way into the battle. Here he sacks Hippopotas, which I really don't agree with, because he actually just saved it, and then he brought it back in. And, you know, I was thinking about it, this would make sense if he was Sandrush Excadrill, but he's not. He's not setting up the sand for anything, unless he just wants me to get whittled down. I'm assuming he just wanted me to miss, I guess, but, like, there were still better things he could have done here, in my opinion. I do use the Seed Flare to take it out, and my Lepid Berry does go off, which means I'm going to get a fresh set of 8 Seed Flares, which reveals my opponent, unfortunately, that he wasn't able to successfully stall out Seed Flare. I think that's actually what he was trying to do, was stall out Seed Flare by sacking Hippopotas, but it didn't work, obviously. And I had other moves for his Pokemon anyways. But here I'm just going to Intimidate the Excadrill. I expected him to go for Poison Jab, but he actually made a good read and went for the Earthquake anyways. But now that I know that he's locked into Earthquake, I'm able to go into Mantine. And I'm just going to click Scald. The battle is starting to wind down a little bit, but he goes into Jellicent, or no, I'm sorry, he goes into Aromatisse, as I just click Scald. I think he goes into Jellicent next, though. But basically, I'm kind of just trying to click Scald and Roost at this point. I'm honestly just trying to like kill off his team at this point. It's reaching the late game where everything's kind of getting whittled down. But instead, I actually decide to go into Arcanine because I'm being whittled down too much by the Toxic on Mantine. And I thought I'd live this better, but he gets a crit, which kind of matters a little bit because my goal here is to kind of just extreme speed this Aromatisse. I kind of just wanted to come in, extreme speed, and switch out and save my extreme speed for Gallade if I needed it later. But he gets a crit here, and because of the Toxic, it's actually going to put Arcanine on a bit more of a timer than I wanted. So I get the KO here with Arcanine against the Aromatisse, so now it's 5-3, and he's going to bring in Gallade, and I just click Extreme Speed again, expecting him to try and attack me, but he went for the Swords Dance. In hindsight, I think I should have clicked Flare Blitz, but it was kind of just a 50-50 there, and he takes me out. Now, here comes a very crucial point in the game. Swords Dance is very scary to my team. Very threatening. And there's a bit of a problem, because depending on his EVs, he could potentially live a Bullet Punch from Scizor. It depends how he invested and in what direction. So that's not good, because I want Scizor to be able to just take him out with a Bullet Punch, easy peasy, done deal. But instead, I decide to go into Alakazam, right here, which is very, very scary, because if he has Shadow Sneak, he could kill that, and our chances are bleak for the rest of the game. Because I will outspeed this Gallade, even though I lost my Choice Scarf, because that's how I invested EVs, to be able to outspeed this Gallade if I needed to. So basically, it's going to come down to right here if I can outspeed the Gallade or not, or if he has Shadow Sneak. So I send in my Alakazam, and he does not have the Shadow Sneak, and I'm able to kill him with the Shadow Ball. So that is 4-2 now, and basically, the game is pretty much sealed at this point. Now, his Excadrill is Scarfed, so I do have to switch out. I kind of just want to see what he locks himself into, so I go into Mantine. Mantine specifically because it would be nice, you know, if he decided to switch out into Jellicent. I don't mind being in on Jellicent either. But I'm just going to click Roost here to stay healthy, as he just kind of spams Iron Head. And here, I think I do click the Scald as he goes into Jellicent. Which, I mean, it's whatever. He gets some health recovery. But the game is winding down for him. He is definitely behind. But here, I'm going to switch into Shaman, expecting him to click the Water move. Even though I'm actually a Mantine, I actually expected him to click the Water move. I didn't think he would click Ice Beam, so I knew Shaman was kind of safe. And if he clicked Toxic, which I guess was even more likely, it didn't matter because, again, this is my Status Absorber. But I go into Shaman here. I just click Rest to make sure that Shaman can be healthy enough to handle the Excadrill if I need it to. And I'm going to just switch back out because now he's at a point where he can live a Poison Jab from Excadrill if I need him to later. And he'll also be able to kill the Jellicent once he's awake. So here I go into Alakazam, which has great special defense, can eat the Ice Beam, and I'm just going to go for a Shadow Ball here to try and take out the Jellicent. It actually eats it pretty well because this is a crit, and he does go down to the Toxic damage, but that does very little for crit damage. So I'm very surprised by that. But something very interesting happens right here. So I know that this Excadrill is Scarfed, and I know that I pretty much have the game sealed at this point, because, you know, it's 4-1. I have enough Pokemon alive that no matter what move he goes for, I have a switch in for it after Alakazam goes down, and I can win the game. So, what I want to do here is sack Alakazam and figure out what move that is that he's going to lock himself into. The problem is, I shouldn't outspeed him at all. So I just click a random move. And I decide, well, if for some reason he doesn't kill me, say he goes for Rock Slide and it misses, what would be the best move for me to click? And I actually click Trick instead of an attacking move, because it would ensure victory for something like Shaman. Even if I give, this Excadrill the leftovers that I'm borrowing, Shaman can come in and click Earth Power, and it's a GG, because I will be able to outspeed him once he doesn't have the Scarf. The reason this is important is because his Excadrill ended up not being EV'd correctly, and I do happen to outspeed this Excadrill where I'm not supposed to, and he takes me out right here, which that was not supposed to happen. I talked to him after the battle. That was definitely not supposed to happen, but it doesn't really matter in the end because, like I said, Shaman gets to come in and picks up the KO. So a very weird situation at the end. It definitely ended very weirdly. A lot of confusion happened. The Gallade, like, oh, is he going to have Shadow Sneak? Is he not? This Excadrill, am I going to, be able to beat it? Or do I need to figure out what move he's locked into? All sorts of questions. So, it was a very weird game. Props to Jazz. He is now 1-4. 1-3, sorry. We are now 4-0. Moving on. And we are still keeping the win streak alive. It feels very nice. The crest didn't come, which I felt very relieved about, and I definitely think would have put a lot of pressure on my team. There were some weird plays on both sides. I, kept kind of changing my mind about my battle plan this week. I didn't really have too much of one. I kind of just designed sets that I thought would work based on the Pokemon he had. So I constantly changed my mind a lot, and I made some weird switches, but he also made some pretty weird switches, at least in my opinion. It's kind of weird all around. This whole match was weird. But with that all being said, thank you guys for watching. I'm going to start a playlist soon of all of these battles. If you missed any, you'll be able to watch the playlist and be able to see the battles. Next time I see you, it'll either be the makeup battle for week 3 or it will be week 5. And I also have more stuff on the way, as I talked about in my update, and you will find out about some of that stuff soon. So anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace out.